But first, today was the last day of Parliament before the Voice referendum. The vote precisely 1 month from today. With tensions heightened, question time was heated and testy. On the one side, Peter Dutton took the opportunity to accuse the Prime Minister of mishandling the Voice.
The Prime Minister's political game playing is costing Australian families and businesses. Electricity prices, groceries, mortgages and rents are all surging. Despite this, the Prime Minister's priority is to pursue a divisive Canberra-based Voice proposal while refusing to directly condemn comments that Australians are either racist or stupid. When will the Prime Minister admit his incompetence and mishandling of issues that are hurting Australians and dividing our country?
Anthony Albanese made his final parliamentary pitch to voters, saying that just like the Business Council couldn't advocate for which sporting team would make it to the grand final, the Voice advisory body wouldn't have a say on issues like parking tickets.
The point of the Voice is that it's an advisory group that very clearly doesn't have the right of veto, doesn't have the power to direct Parliament or to direct the government. So it just has the power of its ideas. And just like the Business Council of Australia can make representations over whether Melbourne or the Roosters are going to win this Saturday, it's not relevant. The idea that their priority is about parking tickets or anything else is complete nonsense.
The Prime Minister had started the day with AFL legend Michael Long, who trekked 650 kilometres from Melbourne to Canberra in support of the Voice. Long called on Albanese and the Yes campaign to keep heart as support for the Voice falls.
There is plenty of negativity around the referendum from Prime Minister Howard. He has asked Australians to maintain their rage against the Voice. But this is not about rage. It's about love. It's about listening. It's about giving Indigenous people power over their destiny.
Meanwhile, Jacinta Price took centre stage at the Press Club, where she urged voters to say no to what she called a voice of division. She said she does support recognition in the Constitution, but she can't get behind a model that she's accused of racially separating the nation.
We don't need a voice to Canberra. We need accountability. It is the Labor Party who have gone down this path of division by hitching recognition, which most Australians support, to the Voice. The Coalition is consistent on supporting recognition, but we, rightly, say no to a divisive voice.
And on the issue of racism, Jacinta Price revealed that her personal phone number was shared on social media yesterday and she's been bombarded with vile abuse. She blamed the Prime Minister for this, saying it was his decision to pursue this model of the Voice, which has now divided the country.
I'm no stranger to horrible, horrible abuse. And what I will say is that Prime Minister needs to take responsibility for the division that we're now confronted with. And I would suggest that it's Albanese's leadership that's on the line here going forward.
Well, just as the Yes campaign has been trying to repitch its message as one of love, Voice co-architect Marcia Langton's accusations of racism have cut through to voters this week. The Australian's editorial today says that this talk of racism will make wary voters even more suspicious. The editorial makes the point that just as the Yes campaign led by Noel Pearson was pivoting towards love, it became embroiled in heated debate over Langton's comments. The editorial says that from deep inside the Yes camp, Langton has veered off script and abandoned the need for conspicuous tolerance to win back what are considered to be soft no voters. Today, yet another video emerged of Marcia Langton saying that Australia is a racist country. Here's Ben Fordham playing that clip from 6 years ago on his show earlier today.
What fantasy world do they live in that would make them even ask the question? Of course Australia's racist. It's a horrible racist country.
A horrible racist country, she said. Well, over the years, Marcia Langton has accused Australians of racism time and time again, including in comments over the past few months during the Voice campaign. Let's recap some of those comments that I played you last night that have become so controversial.
Every time the No case raises one of their arguments, if you start pulling it apart, you get down to base racism. I'm sorry to say it, but that's where it lands. Or just sheer stupidity. Families have been broken apart by social workers who are, by and large, white and racist. He's appealing to that 22% of the Australian population who are deeply racist and, for some reason, irrationally hate Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. By and large, Australians don't really understand the swamp of racism that they live in.
The question is, with just over 4 weeks left until the referendum and with polls indicating 57% of Australians are now planning to vote no, has the Yes camp given up? Well, I spoke to sources from the Yes campaign today, and they still believe there's a narrow path to victory. They say it's getting narrower, but there is still a path. This path is based only on the undecided and disengaged voters. And they cite the 2019 federal election campaign, where Scott Morrison surged ahead of Bill Shorten in the final week after polls had repeatedly showed that he'd likely be defeated. And campaigner Paul Erickson has reportedly told Labor caucus this week that there are around 5 million Australians who are still undecided, and that they'll turn their attention to the Voice closer to the referendum in the final week. Well, there's a big campaigning effort this weekend in 40 locations across the country from the Yes side, including concerts with Paul Kelly and Missy Higgins. While the No campaign is arguing, if you don't know, vote no, the Yes campaign will argue a vote for no will mean more of the same policy failures. Doesn't quite have the same ring. My sources tell me that the Yes campaign is worried that people are picking up the messages from the No campaign before they've actually tuned in and digested the information about the campaign. In other words, the No campaign is reaching people first and with more effective messaging. Well, the Prime Minister today seemed to partly blame the media for the slide in support for the Yes vote. Seriously. Now, most commentators say that he chose an overly ambitious model, that he didn't properly engage in public consultation, and that he didn't bother to get bipartisan support before starting the campaign for the referendum. But according to Albanese, it's the media's fault. Have a look at this.
So I'm not interested in equal misinformation. I'm interested in facts. I'm interested in people, and the media have a role in this as well, in how the reporting of this occurs, of what the question is. What the question is. I'd encourage newspapers out there, here's an idea, put on the front page what the question is before people that they're being asked to do, because it's a simple proposition. It's not about a range of things that are being asked in the Parliament. It's not about a range of the misinformation which is there. It's about a very clear proposition.
It's funny how when things start to go wrong for politicians, it's always the media's fault. And you can see the Yes campaign is already starting to try blame the media for the slide in support. And there's also been some focus by a former Prime Minister on Sky News' coverage of the referendum. Well, there are hosts here who support the Voice, like Chris Kenny. There are others who don't, like Peter Credlin. They're commentators. But most of the journalists here at Sky News realise that it's our job to cover both sides of this important debate about our Constitution. Personally, and I've said this now several times, as a journalist, it's not right for me to tell people how to think or how to vote. Most journalists I know take this extremely seriously. No campaigner Jacinta Price has been on this show many times, and I interviewed former Prime Minister John Howard a couple of weeks ago as well. It's where he urged people to maintain the rage and vote no. But I've also approached high-profile Yes campaigners to come on my program so that viewers can hear both sides of the debate. We've approached Indigenous Affairs Minister Linda Burney many times, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese many times, Yes campaigners Dean Parkin, Noel Pearson, Mirandiri McCarthy and Thomas Mayo. These guests either haven't responded to our invitations or have said no. But as the former Prime Minister criticises my company for its coverage of The Voice, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on what his own position was on The Voice when he held the most powerful position in the country. When Malcolm Turnbull had the power, when he was the Prime Minister of Australia, when he could have had a referendum on a voice, this is what he said about the issue.
An assembly of the kind that was proposed would be, in effect, a third chamber of Parliament. And I don't believe our Parliament should have any chambers other than the two that it does, the House and the Senate, and they are open to all Australians.